Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badass.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm tired as always, but I'm good.
I hate that for you.
I know. Oh,
Oh,
well. How are you?
I'm actually doing well.
Good.
Yeah. And so I'm excited about this particular topic just because we get to get into how it is we take that negative energy and push it out whenever we're dealing with it. And also thinking about negative energy that comes back and how it is that we deal with it, or just the overall transmuting of what that feels like and how to do that. And I'm excited today because we're going to share some stories that we've never shared today.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes that's like a little juicy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fun. And I think it's something that we all have to deal with, right? Like whether it's about how we react to it, but we either in our day-to-day have like negative shit coming our way on and then you have to decide how you're going to handle it.
Yes.
But then like when you talk about the stuff that comes up or comes back,
yes,
sometimes that's as simple as like a memory or, something's being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
But just like when you wake up, and have had a dream, you still have to like handle it in your present, right?
Yes.
So like, it's funny because when I do dream, I'm so weirded out because I don't sleep well, right? So when I remember a dream, and if it's at all weird, and they always are, they're always very bizarre, I'm like kind of annoyed because it's just a new element. Like, it happens like maybe monthly that I actually recall a dream, right? So not very often. And when I do, I'm kind of like, why do I have to remember that? Or like, why do I have to deal with that? Whereas a lot of people, they dream every night, right? So it's like something you're used to.
Yeah. Do you journal your dreams?
I don't. Half the time, I don't even remember them by the time I'm like sitting up,
Okay.
So sometimes I remember them. I used to have recurring nightmares that I don't have anymore.
Okay.
About like my sexual abuse when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I don't have those anymore. And I don't, like half the time they are often sexual in some nature, which is always weird, or there's something involved with like I'm not having sex in them usually, but there's something sexual in the dream,
Yeah. Well, sex actually a lot of times symbolizes creativity, just so you know.
Interesting.
And so it's about, especially like the process of like, think about penetration, and, it can deal with like control. It can deal with, it just depends on how you're feeling, within whatever that is, it's always about the emotion. And then if it's with someone, so for example, I'll end up telling this story. I had a dream. I think it's actually, so maybe remind me at the end. I think it's a good ending to what I'm going to be sharing today. But a lot of times the people that are in your dreams are, it's not about them. They represent you. A poor part of you is what I've learned. And so if you have a dream about your ex, it's not really about your ex. It's about what that person represented, or how did you feel in the dream, things like that. So sex dreams are actually a really, really, can be really healthy in a lot of ways, because it's also like freedom to go do like whatever you want and explore and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's it's the whole like dream analysis thing is very interesting.
I love it.
In general. Yeah, I know you really love it. And Jenna really loves it. But it's just for me, it's such a foreign like feeling, like waking up and being like, oh yeah, I had this whole other experience. And now I have to like, deal with emotions or feelings around that experience. Right. And it's so rare. I'm always a little like almost annoyed, like, oh,
Interesting.
yeah. Like, especially if it gives me any sort of weird feelings or anything, then I'm like, why do I have to deal with that too? I'm enough in my waking time.
Well, I found that dreams are also forward looking. So it's also about like, hey, by the way, you're going to be dealing with this, or hey, here's some things going on in your life and things like that. So think about them maybe sometimes as maybe even warnings of like, something to be aware of and be prepared for.
Yeah, Jenna's dreams are very predictive. And she has shared dreams with me that she's had. And because I have a pretty good memory for conversations and for things like this, I don't have a good memory for like my life. But like she can share a dream with me, and then she has a really good memory, but she can like a really good long-term memory. She'll tell me about like a house that she saw or a place, and then like it's been like maybe 5 or 6 years later, like we will end up in that place and she will be like, babe, do you remember when I had that? And I'm like, oh yeah, is this it? Is this the house? Or, like we didn't know it was going to be a hotel, but like, like, holy shit. Yeah. This is the wood that you talked about. Right. Like, so, so she has dreamed of our like houses, and like places that we didn't know we were going to live in. And then we did,
Awesome.
So it's really cool.
All right. Well, I'm going to say hello. We have several people coming in. Miss Carmen, Miss Badass Carmen. Good morning, my two favorite beautiful badasses. Hello from sunny California.
Good morning,
Carmen, and then her twin sister, Myra. Good morning, ladies. Good morning. And so she's coming in from Tennessee. And then we have coming from Georgia, Miss Kim. Happy Friday to my favorite, beautiful, and amazing badass ladies. Thank you, Miss Badass. And then we have Amos. Good to see you. He said, hello. Good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we have Jay Rowe. Good morning, beautiful, badass ladies. Happy Friday. Throwing all kinds of good energy, sunshine, and love your way. I'll be listening and chiming in when I can while working. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
So today, the topic is the energy within. And what we wanted to talk about is we're talking about the law of transmutation, a perpetual energy. And really it's about the things that you might feel and how that energy might also manifest itself in physical ways, for example, or unresolved energy that you didn't even realize was there that may come back to you. But thinking about the energy within you and the energy that we deal with and how it is that it impacts our lives, our choices, and the things that we do. And so I wanted to start off with an example of something recently that happened. My husband had gone to a store, and while he was at the store, a woman that was behind the counter started screaming at a man that came in the door. And apparently this particular person that came in was someone that had perpetrated things and had done things previously. And he was saying things in a sexual manner to her to try to rile her up. And apparently he was not supposed to be at the store. He was banned from the store, and he decided he was going to come in and do these things to this woman just to get her to see what type of feelings or, type of things that she might do.
Yeah.
So in that instance, it's a sexual thing, but it's really about control. It's about the things that he's wanting to see how he can impact her.
Yeah.
Well, she started screaming. Another man came in, and Jay was in the back. And by the time he got up there, the guy was already pushing him out. But then the woman came out, and she ended up vomiting. Like, she went in the back and was just so distraught and started just vomiting. And so I was talking with Jay about this, and I was telling him that this is really a good example of energy or feelings or emotions or the psychological aspect, the unconscious, that is trying to tell us, get rid of this shit. Like, the reason she vomited is she was feeling a particular way about this encounter with this person,
Right.
and her body was rejecting it. So therefore she ends up vomiting. So there's no physical reason as to why it is she vomited. It's
Right.
a psychological thing. So the reason I wanted to tell this story is to have you guys think about how it is that the things that happen to us, the trauma, like this was something like he didn't touch her, he didn't, but it was something that really resonated with her. And so think about the things that have happened in your life, the trauma that you have pushed down that maybe manifests itself later on, and it manifests itself physically. And you realize the two are connected. Now, in the moment, that person immediately vomited. She wanted to, expel the feeling of it, that ick from that person.
Right.
But think about later on how sometimes we have things that are manifesting itself in other ways that are signs that there's still something there, still trauma, still something that we need to deal with. And so I just wanted to demonstrate, a lot of times people will say, oh, I don't really believe in this psychological, that you psychologically can get sick because you're not dealing with this stuff. But this is a prime example of just something that everyone can relate to and has seen people do, that is just an example of how psychologically or emotionally we can be impacted, and it'll manifest itself in a physical way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I get the feeling of how can we be causing like every illness that comes our way, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Especially when there's like biological and scientific things involved, right?
Sure.
But I can't dismiss that there isn't a serious mind, body, soul connection, right? Like, I mean, that also makes so much sense. But I do have a hard time wrapping my mind around, like, like kids getting cancer or, like that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Or like whole communities, right? Like, to me, like when there's, I have a strong belief that my birth mother got cancer from the neighborhood that she lived in growing up, because her brother had cancer. There were many children in that like area that ended up having cancer.
Yeah.
And there was a paper mill really close by.
Yeah.
And so I strongly believe, so that to me is like, that was the primary cause, right? Well,
Absolutely.
So,
and I do want to clarify, it's not that that's the only reason psychological, like it can be a toxin, like a true toxin, or you get bacteria in you, or, things like that. So it can be both.
Right.
And so, but where I want people to understand is that the psychological is what people tend to ignore.
Exactly.
They tend to say, oh, well, I must have, it must be drinking, or it must be, those things. Yeah, those things could contribute. Could also be the psychological aspect you're ignoring.
Exactly. And then, so where I was going is I understand that, but then you have the other side of that is like, the placebo effect. Like that's an actual thing that has been measured multiple times, in all sorts of scientific studies, where you have one group that you're given one thing to and the other to the other, and the that is just beyond interesting, right? How powerful our minds are. So
there was something recently on that where like it was like a hip implant or some type of surgery or something major, and they did it to a portion, didn't do it to a portion, and they told the other people that they had and they hadn't, and all of a sudden they were fine. I was like, whoa.
Yes, there's that was done with like a knee surgery too.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's amazing how powerful our minds are. And I know, and I think I've mentioned it on BOYBAS, but I mean, I've had a lot of well, this is a good tie-in to one of the things I was going to share. So, Jenna and I are certified in a couple of different other healing modalities. Jenna more than me, but one of those is that we do the quantum hypnosis, and we actually learned about it through BOYBAS through Wave Amora. So, so when we were in our training, we were told, it's actually pretty common for the client to need to go to the bathroom, usually just to go pee, but, to go to the bathroom in the middle of the session. And sometimes that can be really disoriented, like depending on how far they are into the theta state. Sometimes they will feel like, oh my God, I just ruined it. Like I was hypnotized, which you're really just in that theta state, like the same state that you go into like right before you go to sleep, or but and now I had to go to the bathroom, so now like I won't be able to get back into it, and those are all misconceptions that we deal with in the session and help. But it's really, so you end up needing to kind of warn people, because it can be really disruptive if they didn't know that could happen. And Jenna and I both noticed that we'll gently bring that up, and some people are just like, okay, whatever, they don't notice it. But some people are like, oh no, I just went to the bathroom, and like I should be fine. I don't go to the bathroom that much, and I drank my coffee hours ago, so it won't be an issue. And then it is, all right, and we both have this firm belief that it's literally like they need to release toxins, because it always seems to happen in the sessions where there's some traumas that are brought up, right? That's where right. Like the purpose of the session very, distinctly turns into helping heal from a particular trauma. And we've had a couple of clients that have had to go more than once, like, in like an hour. And that's just kind of crazy, because when you really think about it, like like if you're in a 1 hour, therapy session or something, you would never need to go to the bathroom twice, unless you're sick, So like, we seriously believe like the body just has to get rid of it. Whatever, in all ways, so, and I think that's a huge component. And then you think about like how there are some people who, if they get nervous, they immediately start to sweat. Well, that's like the body's reaction, right? The body's like help get rid of some of these emotions and that energy through like all the pores of the skin, right? Like, so it's very, I think, more common than we know, and something that people don't think about as often, like you said.
Yeah. And we mainly just wanted to start the conversation off just giving you guys some examples, some easy examples, or some examples that you might relate to that aren't getting too deep into the topic. But we do have some things to be able to share as well, just about our experiences for ourselves and how it is that we've dealt with transmuting energy or having energy come up that you didn't realize was still there.
Right.
And I have a particular incident that was something that I would say that I probably, like, I I knew about it. You know, in the moment, it was very traumatic. It was a lot of things that I had to deal with in the moment, and even the aftermath, and things like that. But I think, sort of pushed it down because there were so many other things that happened in my life that it was something that I hadn't even told my husband. And then it was something that ended up coming back, because of conversations that I was having.
Yeah.
And so, what the incident that happened, I was in 8th grade, and there was a person that I was attracted to, and this person expressed interest in me as well. I ended up going over to that person's house, and that person ended up taking me up to their bedroom. And so I'm in 8th grade. This person is 2 years older than me, so they were a sophomore. And this person started kissing me, making out with me, things like this. Keep in mind, I hadn't done a lot, sexually, other than what, had happened to me whenever I was young, having been molested. So in this moment, I'm very attracted to this person. I like this person. And this person is becoming intimate with me. So they are doing things, from a touching perspective. There's no penetration as far as like penile, didn't have sex, but definitely, finger, all of those types of things were going on. Lo and behold, what I didn't know was that this person was recording me. And not only was this person recording me, this person had it set up where other people were watching the incident at the same time.
So creepy.
What I ended up finding out later on was, this was years later that I found this out, that apparently this person was so enamored with the fact that they were able to do this to me that they were flipping off the camera while they were doing things to me.
Oh my God.
Just imagine someone so vile that they feel like they want to humiliate. Like, that's really what they're trying to do, is humiliate this person.
Yeah.
So I end up finding out here, I like this person. And then I find out that this person has recorded me. It then comes out. This person doesn't contact me anymore. And then I find out that's what this person was doing.
Yeah.
So I confront this person, and I told him, I want the tape. And this person told me that they had burnt the tape. The tape didn't exist anymore. So here I am in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I'm now at a crossroads of, how do I handle this particular situation?
Right.
So what I also found out is, not only did this person do all of these things, they then started showing the tape and laughing, going, haha, like, look what I did to this person. And people were like, what the hell? And so that's how it ended up getting out and getting back to me, people telling me, hey, Sarah, I heard that there was a tape. So then there's the aftermath of, people thought I had sex. I had never had sex at this point. And so now the rumor mill and all of those types of things are coming out about you as someone in 8th grade about to go into 9th grade. And then I decided I was going to tell my mother. So I told my mother, I was like, this is what happened. And my mother ended up confronting this person and ended up telling him, that if a tape did actually transpire and things like that, that legal stuff would happen. I do wish, one of the things that I wish my mother had done is confronted his parents, and also put it on record that he did this.
Right.
Because I ended up finding out years later, he did it to someone else.
Yeah. And he probably did it to more. Like,
agreed. And so, and I also see the person that this person has become. They have continued to manipulate. They have continued to do things, make everyone think that they're this great person, when in actuality, someone that can be that vile and try to purposely embarrass someone and then do it multiple times and then continue, with things that they're doing is not someone that's going to change. Like that is at the core of who that person really is.
Yeah.
This is something I've never shared, but when I had someone come back into my life and share things that they were going through, it ended up sort of bringing forward this negative energy of something I hadn't, and I remember it was, when this person brought this up, like I had all of the negative feeling come back to me on how it is that I felt, and then just the violation of how you felt about it. And then, here I'm also having to talk to my mother about an intimate,
Yeah.
encounter that I've had with someone, and reveal, personal stuff on what it is that happened. It's just, dealing with that type of energy. It's important to be able to acknowledge, like, one, when these things happen, acknowledge this wasn't your fault. A person chose to take these actions, chose to, purposely do the things that they did. So one, it's about understanding and forgiving yourself. For me, it wasn't really about, like, I don't need an apology from this person, because for me, it's about really releasing the shame. It's about releasing the guilt of how it is you feel, because you feel that it's your fault. Like you shouldn't have put yourself in that situation.
Right.
And you have to come to rectify the fact of, no, you were going into this in an honest situation and in an honest way. This person is the violator. This person is the person that chose to do this to you.
Right.
And, and so you have to be able to release that energy in order to move on. And I know that people that are listening from my high school will know who this person is. I'm purposely not saying their name, but I'm letting you know that this person continues to be that type of person.
Yeah. That's, it's sad on so many levels, right? Because first you had to go through that. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you, and that was really your first intimate experience, right? Of your choosing, right? Like,
Yeah.
So like, what a horrible entry into.
I already had a horrible entry,
I know, right? But then on top of it, then
you're violated again.
Right. And this is unfortunately,
yeah,
so common in terms of repeat violations and the things that women have go through, right? I mean, there's just, it's really gross, right? But to have like, now at that point, had you already, was your mom and dad aware of the molestation that had happened?
Yes.
Yes. So you guys had already gone through that as a family, right?
Well, and hadn't really gone through it, honestly. So that was part of the problem, is that, yes, I came out whenever I was 9 years old, letting them know between 6 and 7, for almost an entire year, I was molested. And so then I don't go to counseling. I don't, it's like, okay, now I've told people, now what? I'm not talking to anybody about it. So now, and I think that this is part of the challenge that I have noticed, is that when people are violated and they don't deal with it, I have noticed that people say they then are violated again and then violated again. And, and I have other situations where the same thing happened. And it wasn't until I ended up going to counseling that I finally was like, oh, this is, like I didn't recognize then that this was a pattern.
Yeah.
Now, when I look back, I was like, oh, I was breaking a cycle, like within myself. And there were still things that I did myself. And that's why whenever I hear boys say, oh, she's a slut, she's a whore, all of these types of things, I immediately say to them, I'm like, look, you don't know what that person has been going to. And I'm going to tell you that a lot of times the girls that are promiscuous have had shit happen to them. So let's be a little more kind, to people and not just start throwing out labels.
I mean, I honestly don't know I've never encountered a woman that was, the stereotypical promiscuous that had not
Agreed.
And using that as a way to control sexuality because they had been so out of control. And I know that was a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't. I mean, I can't even count. I mean, I don't think I have counted the times that I was sexually violated. There's just so many, right? And especially because I became an alcoholic, and then I was often, you combined that, promiscuous and whatever the energy is that you hold as a victim when you haven't handled it, that energy, like other perpetrators pick that up. They feel that energy and they know that they can target you. But you combine that with alcohol. I mean, that was just, there are several times in my life where I literally came to and I was like, having sex with someone. And I had no idea that I was even having sex with them because that's how drunk I was. So like, but even in times of sobriety, the way this came back to you was divine in a way, right? So like you needed to process through that.
Yeah.
And you needed to do that. And there's probably a reason why, I mean, I know a little bit more to this story, right? Yeah. But there's definitely a reason why the other person involved came back into your life, right?
Yes.
It's the other thing that I have noticed about sexual trauma and abuse in general is that at different ages, at different moments in your life, you will have to probably process it again.
Exactly.
Right. So,
not a one and done.
No, it certainly isn't. So like, my parents, I'm like about 10 years younger than you, I think, maybe 7 or 8. I don't remember. I'm going to be 46.
Yeah. And I'm 50. So you're not.
Okay. No, not that much younger. Yeah. Okay.
I'm 51.
Right. No, you're 51. Right. So we're like 5 years apart. That's what it is. Yeah. So,
just trying to make me an old woman.
Yeah. I think it's Kim that I'm maybe 10 years. I don't remember. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just shitting with you.
but 6 years is a difference in terms of, especially back then, and like in certain times of big technology jumps or big whatever, Yeah. But my parents did get me into therapy, and but back then in the 80s, it was play therapy. So I didn't even talk about it. I literally just played cards with this person. And if I won enough, they took me out to lunch, and then issues, and then go back in therapy, and then more issues, and then go back in therapy. And this continued up until into my 40s, this cycle of needing to process these traumatic things at different moments, Yes. And I still had flashbacks that like things that came up that I didn't know happened. Right. Like, and that is if anyone, if any of our audience has gone through that, or if you've gone through, that is such a fucked up feeling.
Yeah. I do want to bring up Leslie's comment.
Yeah.
She said, I'm sorry that you went through this. I had no idea. That's okay, Leslie.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm so glad I tuned in today. I started dealing with this in therapy.
Oh, congrats. I'm glad that you are doing that for yourself, Leslie,
Yes,
honestly. And I'm so glad to see your face again.
I know. I'm glad you're here.
Me too. Um, so and maybe this is what happened with Leslie. I don't know,
Mhm.
Leslie, if
Yep.
all of a sudden had some flashbacks or you had some memories or something came up in your life where it was like, you have to deal with this, just like what Sarah said. Something came,
Yeah.
some force came back and you have all of a sudden this whole new, not new, but this whole new thing to deal with from your past.
Yeah.
And
There was something you said in, I also think that these things come back because for me, it's also a cycle of maybe the purpose of me also dealing with this was for me to truly heal. But a part of the healing process is also helping this other person
right,
as well, and also to connect to that other person as well and let them know they aren't alone, they aren't crazy either. What they thought happened
right,
as well, because a lot of times what these people do is make them feel it's their fault. Well, this person basically deserved it because they were willing to do XYZ, so that's their fault. So
right,
I want people to understand that's not your fault. Your this person chose very purposely to do what it is that they did.
right. And there's a huge difference. Those of us that have been in this scenario, you can know logically that it is not your fault.
Right.
You can know, and people tell you, and you've told yourself, like,
Yep.
I didn't want this. This was not my fault. But that knowing that logically and actually actually processing it and handling the inevitable shame that you feel, is a completely different thing, right? Because
It really is.
for whatever reason, most of the time we feel bad about what happened to us, even though it was not our choice, right?
Yeah.
There's some like, oh, like when you were a kid, maybe there was an aspect of some of it that you liked the attention, or and then you feel bad about that, like, oh, or you put yourself in this situation or whatever,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter. There's always some type of shame there, and that's what you end up needing to work on the most. That's what you needed. That's the energy that you are carrying that is the most toxic, is shame.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to bring up is that recently my daughter has been, wearing things that are a little bit more provocative and things like that. And it was brought to my attention that there were some boys following her and things like that. And uh, the person that was telling me this was almost sort of saying that, well, Riley needs to be aware because that can attract, and basically it's her fault if something happens. And I was like, whoa, 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 like, hang on. And I was like, there are women in burqas that get raped. So it is someone's choice. Where we fall down in society is saying, whoa, you need to stop your feeling that you are superior and that you have a right to do this. Stop fucking blaming women based on how it is that they're dressed and the things that they do. People that violate them are the people that we should hold accountable. Period.
Absolutely.
End of sentence.
Right.
Like, the fact that we even victimize the victims is asinine to me in society. And
Yeah.
it really just gets to me. And I'll tell you that the things that are going on politically right now, I think that's why I get so riled up. I see a person that is exactly like the violator that violated me. I recognize that energy. It is one of the things that I have been given, a part of having gone through this, is intuition to know when to spot, because we have seen patterns. We know when to recognize these people. So when people tell you you're crazy, this person isn't like that, and you know deep down inside, because you know what that feels like, I'm like, fucking bullshit. I know what it looks like. Like, I've been there. So, so I want people to step back and really question the things that they're ignoring, the passes that they're giving people in the things that are going on in society. Stop victimizing the victim.
Absolutely. 100%.
You can't tell I have a lot of energy to get out.
Yes. And I love it. And I think it's so true. It happens all the time. And the even people with the best intentions end up sometimes saying that to the people they love, right? Like I was attacked in college by a boss, and he like literally was gonna rape me. He had ripped my pantyhose. Like it was at a formal in the union at the college, and I literally had to like fight him off to get out of the office with him, and I ran home to my apartment, which was 2 blocks away, and I called my mom, and this is only one of the only times that she really like hurt me deeply, and we were able to heal from it and talk about it later, but one of the first, and I was not super drunk, but one of the first things she asked was, well, were you drinking? And I said, yeah, Mom, I was drinking. It's a fucking formal, like everyone's drinking, and I remember just feeling like horrible about myself. Right. And we were able to get past it. And it came from a place of, I'm so scared for you, and I want you to not put yourself in any sort of risk, right? I want you to not be in that position, and I even knew that at the time. Like, I knew that she wasn't truly blaming me, but she also was like, you're my child, and I want everything to be safe for you, right? So, as a parent, I've tried to be really careful there. The other thing I want to say, which is it's a hard thing to bring up, but because I have dealt with this personally, when kids are involved, there's still an opportunity to help. Like, I feel horrible, if this individual had maybe gotten some therapy and some help for what he did, instead of building on that horrible controlling, like what eventually happened is that, like, what happens with abusers, that becomes a way that they get endorphin release, a way that they, feel good about themselves. And it's an just like any addiction or any unhealthy habit, and it's sick. We all know it's sick, but we also know that it's possible to help these people.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, the recidivism rates for young male sexual offenders, if they get therapy and help, is actually extremely low, like below 1%. So if a young man violates another person and is caught and treated and held accountable and given the correct therapy, they end up never reoffending. Like, and that is first of all, a very uncommon statistic. Nobody knows that, and it's really interesting when you actually read this stuff and are exposed to it. But how many of these kids are never treated? How many of these kids are never helped, right? And then how many just end up, it becomes a part of who they are, just like this individual, right? And then they go on and hurt so many more people.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge what it is that you're saying, because if we look at, so I went to school for psychology and criminal justice, and one of the things they ended up telling us is that 9 out of 10, and I really think it's probably 10 out of 10, but 9 out of 10 people that are on death row were physically, sexually, or mentally abused as kids.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell us? If we want to actually, and I was talking to my daughter about this, my daughter was like, every child should be seeing a therapist. And she brought this up to her grandma and her husband, and he immediately rejected it. He
Right.
was just like, well, that's just asinine. Like, not every child, needs, but that's, people that don't want help, that's how they're going to respond. To me, it takes a stronger person to want help and to seek help than it, because it means that I'm going to have to actually deal with my shit. Like the shit that I did, the shit that, happened to me, it is coming to a rectification, rectifying and understanding the stuff that actually happened to you,
Right.
and finding like where you contributed and where it is that other individuals also contributed to whatever the scenario is. So the
Right.
reason I'm pointing this out is that if we were to spend money on anything in the United States, for me, it is 100%. I believe if we focus on kids and getting them the counseling that they need, the true counseling they need, not just the bullshit, tell me how your feelings, but like for me, like dream therapy, really like talking to them, getting them to open up and have a safe space, like just having a safe space to express your feelings. My daughter does this to me. She'll send me a message and she's like, no action here. Like she tells me, and I acknowledge her feelings. I'm like, that sounds very frustrating. I'm sorry that you're going through that. She's like, thank you. I just needed to be heard. Like people just need to be heard. And that's part of why therapy is important. Then there's things that have happened to them and then they need to process it. They need to get that shit out. People that are still dealing with that, they're still struggling. They're struggling in life. In the things, like there's still stuff that they need to get out so they can truly become the person that they're meant to be, the full fearless authentic BOYBAS person. You have to get that shit out. That to me is what BOYBAS is about. It's about digging in deep into the shit that you want to bottle up and not tell anybody, and really deal with it. That to me is a badass.
Yeah. Absolutely. And to do so with the intent of healing, and to do so with the intent of potentially inspiring someone else to do the same. Right. And when you clear that crap, when you actually process it and let it go to the best of your ability in that moment, because it'll probably come back.
It will.
But, there's so much freedom there, and there's so much beauty in those moments, right? When you've conquered something that you compartmentalized and ignored for years.
Yes.
Right. And then it comes up and you realize, okay, this is the time.
Wait, I'm somebody on therapy. I could just tune into YouTube, badass.
There you go. Absolutely, Leslie.
No, absolutely. And she also said, check out the book, Why Gary Why. It's Jody, is it Plotchett's story. He was violated by his karate instructor for a year when he was a child, and his dad ended the life of the perpetrator on live television. Now Jody helps people move past this type of trauma as a public figure. Wow. Holy
That's
moly.
amazing. That sounds like a really cool book.
It does.
I love that. Yeah, I think there's so many little interesting public stories about this that don't get talked about either. I mean, Kendrick Lamar, he was abused as a child and has a few rap songs about it, right? And you don't hear about that. I mean, he's amazing to be vulnerable enough to put that out into his art and to do so publicly and give people the inspiration and the ability to understand that they're not alone, right? But it's also like, as a society, we're afraid to talk about the dark stuff too much, in my opinion. And if we did a little bit more, maybe it wouldn't be so fucking dark, right? Like maybe it would just be, and then there's a whole other side to all of this, which is there's something fundamentally wrong in our society or with humanity in general. Or maybe it's not even, I mean, yes, it is wrong. That is not what I want to say. But it is not unique, right? It has been happening since the beginning of time. People have been raping, abusing, enslaving each other. Like, and what are we going to do about it? Why are we still using our humanity for that type of evil?
Yeah. Why are we not treating all humans like humans? Like even the person that has done this, like I don't wish any ill will towards this person. I feel sad for this person, honestly, because someone that has to do that is a person that probably had some type of trauma that they felt the need to be able to control other people because they didn't feel control. So think about those types of things. And I was talking to my daughter about this, is that think about the things that people do and the reason why they do things. Sexual, most of the time rape has nothing to do, or things that people do that violate other people have nothing to do with actual sex. It's about the control. It's about them controlling. And most of the time, those people don't feel control in their life. So they have learned, well, I better control others before they control me. So that's someone that's hurt. That's someone that hasn't figured out how to have healthy relationships, has never felt safe enough to be able to just be in a relationship and have a loving relationship. They feel the need to continue to do these things because they don't know any other way. I feel sad for people like that. And so think about that, like I don't wish anything bad on the people that have violated me. I send nothing but love to them because that's ultimately what they need, because they really have never truly felt that. They don't really know what true love is. And that's fucking sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It is sad. And it's sad that they never got help. And it's sad that they never, learned a better way or a better coping skill, or, are brave enough to hold themselves accountable, are brave enough to love themselves, even though they've done awful things. Right?
Agreed. Yes, that is the biggest thing, is like, so I'm going to bring this up. It's like the big thing that's on social media is the CEO that got caught with the HR person. I know you're not on social media as much, but like, it is just like, I'm like, holy shit. Like every time I flip, I'm seeing this. And this person finally came out and they were like, I'm going to reflect. I'm going to basically be accountable. And then the next sentences were basically excuses. Like, you guys shouldn't have done this. Like, this was a private moment. This person was caught cheating, and I was just like, okay, like you should have stopped at reflect and accountability of yourself. Like, stop there, stop making excuses, go reflect on whatever it is and why it is you made that particular choice. I agree. It's horrible that it's been made so public. That's horrible. And honestly, it's more horrible for the wife that he cheated on, and potentially, I think the other person cheated on. For me, it's more horrible for them because they've been put in the limelight and they didn't ask for that.
Right.
And so, but in the things that we do, we have to reflect and understand where we do have truly blame, or things we could have controlled in the situation. And then we also have to put back on the other person, like, no, I couldn't have controlled this. This wasn't something I even knew about. Like, I couldn't have done anything in this situation. So we really have to rectify where it is the shame and the blame actually lies in the situation.
Right. Right. And it's like when you just kind of wish people would reflect honestly.
Yes.
Like, okay, you're holding yourself accountable, and but that's because you were caught, right? Like, you got caught.
Yeah.
Would you be doing that if this was a secret still?
Yeah.
Not, right? That's the thing. That's when, you go above and beyond, like, right. So like in our family, when we had something really terrible happen, the person told us, they literally said, I've done this and I need some fucking help, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is bravery.
Yeah.
That is amazing, right? And that is I'm disclosing a secret that I don't have to disclose, but I need to get the help, right?
Yeah.
So
I want to bring up a couple comments. So thank you, Michael. Intelligent and important conversations. Thank you both for being willing to talk about these things, as well as your quest for humanity and accountability. And so thank you, Michael. I'm glad that you're here today. And then Nicole, do the right thing even when people are not looking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so like I will give more credit to the person. I will feel better about the person that is actually like, maybe they've raped someone or they've actually violated someone physically, but they're holding themselves accountable. They're getting help. They're, how rare is that? But let's say, that would happen versus, a situation where, like I'll share this. This is the fucked up thing that has happened to me, but I have my older brother. He's technically my stepbrother. He has, throughout my life, made very sexual comments to me while he was drunk. He's an alcoholic, but it's abusive and it's weird and it's wrong because he's supposed to be my older brother, and he's been my brother since I was 1. So, and he refuses to hold himself accountable to it. He refuses to acknowledge that it's even happened. He's never touched me. He's never actually, when he's sober, he never makes me feel unsafe, but
yeah,
I finally wanted to address this with him, and we're just not speaking because he refuses to talk about it, right?
Yep.
And it's bullshit. It's like, you can't tell me you love me if you will not acknowledge that the possibility that, like, why? First of all, why would I lie about it? Second of all, and I'm not. And he literally doesn't even acknowledge it. Like, he hasn't said you're lying. He hasn't said anything. Just no acknowledgement.
Sure. Like, I mean, the dissonance, within him, he's like, no, I can't, I can't agree to that, because then that would be him rejecting himself in a lot of ways. And that's part of the challenge, is that in order for him to admit it, he also has to admit what does that mean? What does that say about him?
Yeah. Right. And I would just, I would just want to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, acknowledgement, like, you know what, that is inappropriate. I don't, I need to reflect upon, like, why did I do that? Like, that's all that people really want is, like, holy shit, like that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually, I mean, I think about it sometimes, and I'm so shocked that Jenna even was willing to enter our family, because one of the first times she was hanging out with us, he like sat us both down and tried to have a conversation with us about how we could have a threesome, the three of us. And
what the fuck?
I know. We took his keys and left. with his car. And, but like, that's how we ended up handling that situation. And we've talked about it a few times about how fucked up it is. Right. But it's just like, I sure do love that she still gave me a chance and was like, yeah, I'll join this. There's this weird aspect, but okay.
Yeah. And, here's the thing is that when people have done things. So I recently also posted about energy and how it is that I was feeling in my mother wound. And so a part of the things that happened between my mother and I related to these topics is that I felt safe enough to talk to my parents and tell them, and told my mother. Then my mother told my father about me being molested whenever I was younger, but no one did anything. Mm-hmm. And so like I know that we don't necessarily always know the right decisions to make. I can acknowledge that. Like, no one is given a book on like, when this happens, go ahead and do this. But also acknowledge the fact that also fucked me up a little bit more. And also I didn't get the treatment. So even if you simply said, you know what, looking back, I wish I had done that earlier. I wish that I had, it's those types of things, like accepting the responsibility of what you didn't do. And we, as parents, we need to understand we're going to fuck up our kids one way or the other. So, but now admit it, like just say, you know what, I could have done a better job. Like acknowledging those types of things instead of going, well, what about me? Well, what about the things that I went through and stuff like that? Like that is not helpful in the moment. That is not someone that is like taking a moment to hear what it is that you're saying and saying, you know what? They don't have to say, I was wrong. They can say, you know what? I could have done a better job. And I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. Like those are the things that we need to be able to hold space for our kids and acknowledge the things that we didn't do, not add blame back to them on saying, I needed you now to be a parent and parent me, like the whole, dynamics of parents is we're supposed to be, as parents, the safe spot, the people that are protecting our kids. And when we fail to do that, we also have to own up to those mistakes. That doesn't mean we're a bad parent. It means we failed in that moment.
Yeah. It means we didn't have the skills at that moment. Right. This is something that my parents did a wonderful job with, right? There are always areas, right? Like, could they have modeled better eating habits or, yes, for sure. Like abso-fucking-lutely, right? But they always got help for us whenever they could. They also, as the years went on, they would come back to me and apologize and have conversation and say, like, I remember there was a time, in my early 30s when I was dealing with the sexual abuse stuff again, and I was going to therapy multiple times a week because I was terrified of our kids leaving our house. I was terrified for our kids to go have sleepovers or do stuff, right? We were homeschooling and I was just scared, and that was a sign to me that I needed more help. So then I sought it out. And that whole experience was really hard. I actually also became abusive for a moment. And in that experience, when I was abusive to Jenna, and I had to handle that. And, because all of it brought up all of these control issues, and it was a mess. Yeah. I was feeling so horrible. And I was talking to my dad, and I had started just very high level, like some shit's going on. And he just broke down and said, I am so fucking sorry. And I didn't, I wish I had protected you. I wish I had killed that guy. I wish, all these things, and when you do it right, you can acknowledge that you didn't want it to go that way.
Yeah.
And you can acknowledge you didn't have the skills, and you can acknowledge that, yeah, this shit that happened to me probably made me this way.
Yep.
You know what? Not your fucking fault.
That's right.
It might not be my fault either, but it still happened, and I'm still really sorry.
Yeah.
Right. And that is what that's what they modeled to us, and that's what we've done with our kids, so like it is a regular thing, like regular, and it's very freeing at the same time. If you are so willing to apologize, you also can be yourself more willingly, right? Like I have this ridiculous habit of going to extremes when I'm slightly frustrated, just with my words. So I will be like, if you do that again, I'm going to cut your femoral artery. And my family will be like, what? And I'm like, okay, you're right. I'll never do that. It's a fucked up thing to say. I realize you're only 10. let me please tell you, I will never do that. and it's but it's something that I've done, and I've said it, and I'm like willing to say, like, yeah, I don't care who you are, you say fucked up shit sometimes. It just comes through your mouth, and it's okay. We all do it, and you just acknowledge it and say, you know what, like, that is totally inappropriate, not okay. Right. Let me explain to you where your femoral artery is, and I will not ever cut.
Oh my gosh. The other thing that came to mind is that the wounds we hold for ourselves are not an excuse to wound others.
Right.
And so in the moment of when someone is expressing that you have impacted them, or there is a trauma or a wound for them, the place is not to then express what your wounds are. It is to step back and take a moment and acknowledge in that moment, here's the wounds, that person is talking about. Let's talk through that. And that's something that's super hard, that sometimes our immediate reaction is to become defensive, because that means I did something to you, and I don't want to accept that was what that I was capable of that.
Right.
We also have to take the time to stop, pause, and go, okay, this isn't about me. This is about the other person in this moment.
Right.
And that's one of the things that, when growing up, I was constantly hearing from my mother her wounds, and I was becoming the mediator in the situation. And I became the mediator amongst our family. She didn't get along with my sister. She fought with my dad. I was the person that was the mediator. And I took on that responsibility as I grew up to become that person. That wasn't my role. That should have never been my role. Right. That was not the position for the child. And that's where I also had to start to break the pattern, is that she still saw me because she lost her mother. Her mother committed suicide, and she found her. She has that wound. I became that mother figure for her in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so as we started to grow up, she didn't protect me. I was protecting her. And I then get wounded in the process because she's not protecting me. And so I had to break that cycle and go, you know what? This is not, I'm not your mother. Like, I'm not supposed to be in the position that you keep trying to put me in. I realize that you may admire the strength and the things about me, and you want that for yourself. And I also want that for you. I can't provide that to you. That has to come from self-love. That has to come from you internally, the energy within, in how it is that you're going to heal your own wounds. That is not my responsibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you talk about when you connect that to transmuting energy, I mean, that is, that's like an infinite loop of needing to transmute, right? Because those are habits that were formed your entire relationship with your mom, right?
Yeah.
Jenna has dealt with that in all sorts of ways, right? The imbalanced dynamic that you can have when your parents are mentally ill, or when they're not dealing with, when they're not dealing with what they need to deal with, and it's affects the way that they parent, right? So Jenna still, can just yesterday was, she's doing something for herself, and has this voice inside of her saying, that is her mom's voice saying, that's selfish, and it's not. There's not a selfish bone in Jenna's body, but but it's a pattern, right? And her mom is gone, and she still, has those feelings at times. So it's that's how it works.
Yep, it does. Abba said, Cate, to you, I'm sorry that happened to you. More power to you, Cate. And so thank you, Abbas. And then Nicole said, that's such a tough spot to be in, Sarah. Thank you, Nicole.
Yep.
We've talked about a lot today. And I think we're at a point to just saw 11.
I saw it too.
Once. And so we're in the right spot of where we're supposed to be today to start to wrap up the energy within and the topic today. And so, Cate, do you have final thoughts of, maybe let's leave with what it is that you feel like you have done to transmute energy, the things that you have found helpful in transmuting energy?
The biggest thing I have found helpful is a deep self-love, right? So if I love myself and care about what energy I'm giving off, what energy I'm holding, I am empowered to do better, to grow, to learn, and to help those around me as much as I can. But, all I really have control over is being the best version of myself.
Yes.
And that's why at the end of the day, you may need to use the skill of energy transmutation, right?
Yep.
So for me, it's about that deep awareness, deep acceptance, and self-love.
100%. 100%. Identify the things that you feel shame and guilt about, and dig in.
Yeah.
And understand where that guilt and shame really lies. Is it with you, or is it with the other person? And decipher, really think about it in a way of, if someone else was telling me this story, what would I also tell them? Because sometimes we hold ourselves to a different level of accountability or like shame that someone else would tell you, like, why would you feel that way? Like, it just, to you, it doesn't make any sense. So ask your own self, as a friend, how it is that how they should feel in that moment. So separate yourself and really try to look at things objectively and reflect on what it is that you also need to own. Understand the patterns. When you really step back, because we talked about this, that's why we did this on the first episode, the patterns are the things that need to be disrupted. If you're constantly dealing with whatever it is, something keeps coming up, do something else, do something different. If that doesn't work, try something different. So the biggest thing that I would want to leave with people is understand the energy suckers in your life. The people that don't help build you up and don't give you the energy to want to just go out there and be your amazing badass self. Get rid of those people in your life. They're not helping you Identify ways to remove those individuals that are not really helping you in life, and go find people that will. That to me is the biggest suggestion that I have, other than reflecting and go to counseling, go get dream therapy, like all those other things. But for me, it's about getting the negative people out of your life.
Yeah, which circles us right back to, where we started this conversation today. It's like, getting the negative toxins out of your body, the woman growing up. I have a perfect, hilarious segue to end us on.
Awesome.
She delivered me a cup that says, "I love to fart." That's a great way to release.
I love that. One other thing, it's the dream that I had, which sort of for me also ends things.
Yeah.
So the dream that I had, the dream I had this week, because I had things with my ex-husband, which, all of these things led into my ex-husband and I not really having sex, which ended up, whenever I reflect upon it for myself, is probably the reason that he then wanted a divorce. Understandable. But there were still wounds,
Right.
of someone rejecting you and things like that. So my dream this week was that I was in the arms of my ex-husband, and I was like, oh, this feels nice. And then I had the duality of, I then went to my current husband and I was like, oh, this feels nice. And so I was in the arms of both of them, thinking, oh, this feels nice. And then all of a sudden I was like, no, I want to be here. And I wanted to be with my husband, my current husband. Yeah. And so when I talked to Dr. Deb about this, she was like, oh, this sounds like a very healing dream. Like you have healed from the wounds and the things that you felt from that previous relationship. And you're like, things are good. And that's actually how I feel. It's like things are good. Like, I own what it is I own. I'm letting him own the things that he owns from the trauma and the pain that we both went through. So I'm holding space for both of those. But I'm also healed by the amazing, love that I have. I'm where I'm supposed to be in this moment. And so what the dream for me was saying.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. That's what dreams should be, right? Like you should wake up. I mean, right? That's so much better than like, like being fucked by like Godzilla that has like a horse head or something. Like that's the kind of dream I have. Like, where I wake up and I'm like, what? And
so, just Godzilla is you.
Yeah, right.
So what do you equate to Godzilla? And that's a part of you that wants to be known.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And don't forget to laugh.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
And that's one of the things that Cate and I, we started this show because these are the types of conversations that we would have. And we were like, oh, let's just have these types of conversations. But by the end, we'd be laughing. We were like, oh, shit, isn't that so fucked up? How fucked up it is.
Right. Because you just gotta. Like there's so much heavy and it's important to talk about all these heavy things, but you also you gotta let it out a different way, and laughter is a great way to release too. So
it is. And so Nicole said, agreed. They say we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. No negative Nellies, please.
Oh yeah, I love that, Nick.
Well,
Nick made a beautiful post on LinkedIn about her husband, and I just I didn't even get a chance to comment on it, but I really appreciated her sharing and being just vulnerable.
7 years. 7-year itch. We were talking about the 7-year itch. I'm like, it's a thing.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for a great show today, Sarah.
Yeah, you too. I think it was very healing for both of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for being here and healing with us.
Yes.
That's really what it's about, is us digging into our shit and figuring out, what do we need to do? Where do I need to put this energy? And how is it that we can transmute the energy? That's really what it's about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, everybody have an amazing Friday. We have another show for you. We have 2 individuals that will be joining us for our panel next week. So be sure to come back. I am going to be working on getting it posted today. So be sure. And I did that last week, but I think until I push it out or until I like tell people they don't know.
Yeah, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, so I posted it last Friday just to sort of test and see. So be sure, check back, maybe Saturday or later today. I will have it posted. So be sure to go ahead and pre-sign up for next week.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. See you next week.